talk about, so why not just lean into narrative? This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. That's right. When there's not a lot to talk about, why not just let the global football media set the agenda? Because everybody loves that. Well, we're going to do a little of that and maybe a little less than that. I'll explain in a moment. This is a countdown episode. 10 huge topics confronting the Arsenal world that must be addressed, and we are going to address them in rapid fire order. We will spend no more than 20 minutes per topic, meaning just 200 minutes of podcasting today. It's going to be brilliant, and you're going to love it. We love you for being here. I do want to let you know, one of my favorite things that we've started doing when we sign new players, and we've signed quite a few of them, as Phil knows, having had to do the new player podcast over on the Arscast, but we will get a representative from the club from which we have signed the player to come and talk to us and just let them go and talk about the player. Well, we did one with Jim Daly from the 5-Year Plan podcast this week on Eberechi Eze, and it was really good. I think just really enjoyable listen to get a perspective on Eze from a Palace fan. So I hope that you would listen to that. Tomorrow is Friday Night Clive. It is a live show, but it's also as an audio program. And we're going to let Clive go on the power rankings, seeing what he thinks of the rest of the Premier League tomorrow, and maybe one or two other things, depending on how many glasses of Sancerre he's had. I do want to let you know, by the way, because some people still to this day don't know this, when you do sign up for Patreon, you just get the pods in the player you normally get anyway. So it just becomes more stuff. The video, obviously, you can watch. There's video for the Apple signups, too. I will just tell you, if you sign up on Apple, you're going to pay the extra Apple tax, Apple toll. So if you do care about the Apple Corporation and you worry about their profits and you think, I need to support that struggling organization, then that's certainly your choice. But we would love to have you there. Code AVP50 will get you the first month for 50% off, meaning a couple of quid, and you got stuff every single day to listen to. Most of it, not even an idiot like me. We even do stuff like yesterday where we had the season preview of the women's season, which kicks off this week, and history pods from Tim. You going for walks every day? There's an entire catalog of history pods. You could learn the entire history of the Arsenal, which would be worth doing. 2 minutes and 18 seconds today to get to the intros, and the intros I am here to give you is Phil Costa. Hello, Phil Costa.
Hello, mate. How are we doing?
I am doing well. You were the celebrated host of the Football Vision pod as well, and I saw an episode came out the other day. You're talking about deadline day, so if people need their deadline day fix, check out the Football Vision podcast. But, and this is important, not right now. Listen to this.
Ideally not.
Yeah. Ideally not. I mean, we love your pod, but listen to it after this one. And then we are joined by the man who is celebrated for a phenomenal performance on Monday's pod, I have to say, and that is Paul. Hello, Paz.
Woohoo! I was.
yeah, people really liked it. And so Jesus. I actually owe an apology to the listeners because one thing about hosting, right, is that you decide the running order, and I really messed it up. I think the last 45 minutes of Monday's pod, if you haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, I think it's some of the best podcasting we've done in a very, very long time, just breaking down, not just breaking down, but analyzing the game. Unfortunately, I put deadline day stuff up top and a little bit of narrative stuff up top, and I think it sort of obfuscated, it delayed, it hid some of the gold underneath, which was the analysis of the game. So if you want to go back and check that out, you're certainly welcome to. But today, we're doing the countdown, and the countdown is something normally we do on Patreon, but I thought it was good for an international break here. 10 rapid-fire topics to cover related to Arsenal that are sort of in the zeitgeist right now, or maybe they're not, but they're about to be. And so I will start with number 10. Phil, is Mikel Arteta too conservative?
Oh, wow. We're going straight in here with a big one. I don't think he's conservative. I just think we lack some attacking impetus and urgency. That's not to say that he's defensive. I just think we prefer to attack in a different way. I mean, if you're comparing him to a Jurgen Klopp or an Andoni Iraola or someone like that, then yes, he probably does look a bit and feel a bit conservative because their styles are very different. Jurgen Klopp was very much about the pace, the pressing, the intensity, putting people under pressure as quickly as possible, vertical transitions, things like that. Whereas we are a lot more defensively well structured, physical in the middle. We win our duels and our battles, and then we decide to go from there. We build, we suffocate teams. We like to put them in their own box and sort of keep them there, and then just go and go and go with crosses and things like that. So it's just a different way to attack. And I'm not saying that he hasn't been conservative at times, because I think that has been true and proven itself to be true over the last 2 years, maybe. because we've seen very different iterations of Arsenal during his time in charge, and that was the defensively solid one when he first took over and we were a huge mess, and then it developed into the exciting season with Xhaka and Zinchenko and Jesus, and we were like, holy crap, what are we watching here? Then it went to the dual monsters, and now we're here. So it's always evolving, we're always changing. I just think he prefers to attack in a slower, more control-oriented way than looking for transitions. However, does that need to change a little bit? Yes, absolutely. So for me, it's a bit unfair because he gets labelled with narratives, I think, and people stick to them through the media they consume, to the post-match analysis they consume. I think it's very easy to just pick out one or two results and then keep them in your mind and stick to them. So for that, I think he suffers a little bit. But in terms of him as a coach, I wouldn't call him conservative. I would just call it maybe preferring control over chaos, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Paul?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic. I think he is conservative, right? He's not overly conservative. I think, like, this is the perfect game to look at it from. I think it shows who he is. He played to his strengths. He said, where am I strong? But also, where has he made sure he has been strong over the last couple of years? You know, he's bought 2 goalkeepers because the first one was an upgrade on what we had, but the second one was what he really wanted, which allowed him to play from the back, build from the back, which is not at all conservative. That's how you actually attack in this day and age. But he built from the back. We saw that. He built from the back several times. He's bought centre backs. He's bought full backs up the wazoo. He's bought deep midfielders. He's got 2 of the best 6s in the business. And he's kind of layered forward. And the last pieces he put in place were the attack. He's not conservative in the sense that that's how he wants to play. But he has built strength from the back. And going into this game, the one area of the pitch he did not have that was joined up was the attack. And he said to himself, I'm going to Anfield. It's a critical game. Play to my strengths. We were really good playing from the back in midfield. Now, we could have done a little bit more getting between the lines and yada, yada, yada. That comes over time. So I think he played the game plan that his team was ready for, and he was okay that this was a bit conservative. I think we would all say it was a game or two too soon for the players we had, for where we were in terms of bringing players in for a joined up attack with the players who were missing, the players he had to hand. He went a little conservative in the attacking end because that was the one bit we hadn't yet earned the right to go balls out at Anfield. And so, yeah, he will be conservative in that situation, but he wants to build to attacking football. He's done it before. He's gone away to big clubs and we have attacked, but he won't do it when it's not there for us. And I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think the narrative about Mikel Arteta's Arsenal being too conservative is largely nonsense. I think it's largely nonsense. And I think it's nonsense that is instigated by neutral observers who want big games that are dynamic and fun for them. And I think this conservatism, post the terrible squad era. We were pretty dire when he first arrived, and I don't think he had the team to play any other way. And you could say that Mikel Arteta had a choice. He could do what someone, maybe once at Tottenham Hotspur did, like Ange Postecoglou, and just lean into attack, nearly get relegated.
Very entertaining.
Yeah, it was very entertaining for everybody.
The neutrals fucking loved that.
Yeah, who didn't love that? The people that support that club, which is part of the reason we loved it. So we had a choice. But stepping away from that era for a minute, I think the moment that the conservative label really landed was when we went to the Etihad with a title race on the line a couple seasons ago, and we played for a 0-0, and we sucked the life out of that game. And the neutrals were mad. The media was mad. We didn't get our ding-dong 5-goal, 6-goal thriller title decider. And the media made the decision that it was up to us to go for it, when in fact, at 0-0, the title was still in our hands. Okay? The title was still in our hands. Had we not dropped the points to Villa, we win the title. So I think that was where it really landed for people. And I think it's somewhat unfair, especially given the scars Mikel Arteta had of what's happened at the Etihad in important games, because the season before that we went to the Etihad, admittedly needing to win, and we got absolutely slapped. Okay? So it is what it is. I think the narrative was sort of born there. I think the other reason for the narrative where there is maybe a little more fairness is what you referenced, Paul, which is the decision to prioritize building the squad from the back and a seeming reluctance to really spend on attacking reinforcements. I think there's a couple of things about that. First of all, there was a point in time, I think, where everybody on this podcast and everybody listening would have thought Gabriel Martinelli is a budding superstar. To have 15 goals in the Premier League at whatever it was, 20 years old. I mean, he looked like a budding superstar. Another budding superstar on the other side, and a Gabriel Jesus who arrived at the club looking like he was going to win us a title before the knee injury. I don't think anybody would have wanted to just relegate Martinelli to a backup role, or Saka, certainly not. And with Gabriel Jesus, if anything, maybe Mikel is a little guilty of thinking there's time for him to come back and be a contributor. Okay, so some of the recruitment, I think, is oriented around what he had available to him and needing to give that a chance to develop. But I think it is at least fair, if I'm going to be fair, to say that he didn't prioritize building the attack with the same verve and extravagance that he did the control of his squad. So his squad reflects, and his challenge in winning the title reflects the squad he built. But we do have to look at the data, and the data is very clear. We have never been the best expected goals team in the league under Mikel Arteta, no matter how good we are. We had 91 goals. We were third in XG. The season before that, ironically, when everyone says we were more attacking, we had less XG and less goals. You have fewer goals. So I don't know what to say about that. PSG 2 seasons ago won the league with fewer expected goals than we had in either of the 2 prior seasons. Okay, I mean, it just is what it is. This is a tough league to win, and we have one of the best defensive records in world football. We seemingly get zero credit for that, by the way. I never hear anyone saying you really have to respect and praise and admire the way Arsenal simply do not concede and how good the rest defense is. But there's other things. What is conservative? And Phil, this is what it comes down to. Is conservative about how you build your squad? Is conservative about the lineup you pick? Because leading the league or being second in the league in field tilt means you're all the way up the pitch. Highest defensive line means you're all the way up the pitch. You know, one of the best pressing teams and out-of-possession teams in football means you're up the pitch. You're trying to win territory. You're trying to be up the pitch. It's not like our team is 2 banks of 4 in front of our defensive third and just kicking it long. That's defensive. That's conservative football in my mind. So I think before we move on to the next topic, there's really 2 things I want to get at here. One is what we even regard as conservative. And the other, Phil, and this is maybe the place I most align with the claim of conservatism, is I do think Mikel Arteta just doesn't want to play 2 creative 8s. He wants one more midfielder who's a dual winner, who's a physical monster, who's Declan Rice instead of Eberechi Eze, right? Who's Kai Havertz instead of, whoever, Leo Trossard, whoever you think you can put there. And that is maybe conservative from a tactical standpoint. He wants to win the game a slightly different way. So before we move on from this topic, because I think it is one that is getting quite a bit of attention, what do you think would qualify as conservative? And do you think that particular role, that left 8 role, might contribute to some of that perception?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? What do we define as conservatism? And my issue for me with Arteta has been that sometimes I don't know if that when the game needs it or requires it, he is ready to go all out. And I think we have seen Arsenal in that phase, particularly in the first title challenging season, where I felt like we were a lot better at putting teams under the cosh late on. When we were chasing a goal, I believed we could get a goal. I feel like we could put teams under sustained waves of pressure and really keep them penned into their box. But we've hit a bit of a flaw now where teams have figured us out, and they're very happy to sit in their low block and their mid block. And I don't know if we have enough tactically or technically to be able to break down a lot of those teams. And a lot of that last season was down to injury, but you're absolutely right. Some of that has to come from the manager and the instruction the manager is giving. So can you take off a midfielder and put on a forward Can you take off a fullback and put on a forward? These are the small things that you can change in game. Can you take off another 6 and put on a number 8 or a number 10? These are the things that I think we can ask about sometimes, because, like you said, Mikel Arteta, very structured. The rest defense is brilliant. We don't concede any goals. We're all very knowledgeable about where we play and who's doing what, and the roles are very clear. But this is what I think we've tried to rectify this summer a little bit. Can we get a few more pacey, direct mavericks, individualists in the team to sort of break that mold and break the structure a little bit, because it has been an issue. I'm not going to sit here and say that I haven't been annoyed or frustrated with some of the performances, because they have been bland. You know, they have been bland, but I don't think that's down to any, I'm not going to lose this game, so I just won't try to win it. I just think he's happy sticking with what he knows, and then there's no added gears to change a result from there, if that makes, you know.
You know what's funny, Phil?
Yeah.
Some of the conservatism, I guess, is actually loyalty or persistence with players that maybe just he needs to recognize can't do what he'd like them to do. So you could make an argument that Martinelli falls in that camp in terms of, you know, Mikel really values him and trusts him, and there are a lot of people that think that's a good thing and he should be valued and trusted. Others think it's been too long now. A great example is 2 seasons ago when we should have won the title. Everybody points to that Villa game late, but actually we started Eddie Nketiah at striker 11 times, who is a player who, however you rate him, is not a starting player for a title-winning team. And that's until we discovered, you know what, you got to give up on this, play Kai at striker. And from then on, we were winning by 4s and 5s. So there's maybe been some conservatism in terms of a willingness to update his thinking on certain players, move on from them, and let someone else come in and try to make an impact, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And also, injuries are a thing, so we've had to be a bit creative with those, and we've lacked options. So there's so much context around it. And by the way, I think you're right to highlight the Man City game, because even the narrative when we went to Liverpool last week was that they were there for the taking, that they were weak, that they'd struggled early on this season, which they had done, and they conceded twice against Bournemouth, and they conceded twice in their second game as well. But they're obviously going to raise it against us at home. It was the same for City. If you look at their 11 that day, there's nobody missing. And I think Nathan Ake came off after half an hour and they brought on Rico Lewis. And that was City being there for the taking when Bernardo Silva was playing. They had Rodri, they had Haaland, they had Ruben Diaz, they had all of these players on the pitch. So why does that make them there for the taking? And also, we could have won that game anyway if Trossard crossed the ball to Martinelli at the end. So it's just, a lot of that narrative stemmed from a stupid clip from AFTV where they were all clapping at full time, and then suddenly all Arsenal fans were put into the same bracket. It's a load of different things, a few under par performances, some slow performances, some injuries, a few difficult big games that we haven't won or maybe shown our best in, and all of that combined with the fact that we haven't won anything leads to this stuff, right? And I'm not saying it's entirely wrong, but I'm saying there's always a context to be applied. So I don't think he's defensive to kind of ruin everything. I think he's just maybe lacking a bit of adventure in the key moments. So that's the way I see it.
That 0-0 at the Etihad came against a Manchester City that scored 96 goals. Okay, so the idea that anyway, we can't relitigate that game forever, so I'll stop. But Paul, the thing that I do think also, though, is there is an inability for any of us, and I don't mean inability like we're in bad faith inability. I mean a true inability for any of us to really know what to make of last season, because it's bad data. There's too much noise and not enough signal because of how many injuries there were. And so I can look at the 2 seasons ago and the season before that and see 2 of the best attacking seasons in Arsenal's history from a goals scored standpoint, and really respectable XG metrics and all the kinds of things I'd like to see to be indicative of a healthy attack. And then I can look at last season and I can acknowledge the open play chance creation was poor, the XG was poor, the goal tally was poor. So many things last season were not what they needed to be. And I cannot accurately evaluate it because I am a person more than anybody who believes, I don't care what manager you have, your talent defines your outcomes. And we were underpowered from a talent standpoint for a large chunk of last season. So it is just difficult. And if you do think that last season is dispositive and indicative of something, then yeah, you're going to come to a different conclusion. I want to wrap this section up but I do know that you had a couple more thoughts on it. So what are the last few ideas you have about this?
Yeah, well, you gave me some plaudits for my analysis on Monday, so I didn't think you'd want to miss out on this.
Yeah.
My analysis of this is, fuck them.
Yeah.
Fuck them, right? Narrative-wise, there's always going to be a narrative. We didn't win, there was going to be a narrative, right? There's been a narrative in the past about Arsenal. Oh, we're too attacking. We're attacking fools with all the tens, and we're weak, and like that wasn't really true either. But they're going to do a narrative. I'm okay with the, in brackets, they're strong. They're defensively the best team in the league. They're not for moving. But they didn't come and attack crazily at Anfield. I'm okay with that. Fuck them.
And you make a really good point. Yes, sir, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
They don't do nuance. And we don't do nuance or context about other teams and other seasons. That's fine. That's how it is. Like, we will never meet our narratives. Us and them will never meet.
That's what you
right?
mean.
They will never meet. Screw them. If they're going to slam us for something, in brackets, they're slamming us for being really, really good, but not going for it at Anfield. And that's true. We weren't ready. Mikel will attack from strength, right? And we did not have strength in the attacking third. If we did, we would have been much more attacking. We did not have a joined up attack. We all knew that going into Anfield. I'm fine with it. That's it.
Yeah, and as a final point, the team that doesn't win the title, they will say, here's the reason they didn't win the title. They'll pick a reason. And so the reason that has been picked is that our attack isn't good enough. And like, if you agree with that,
we didn't lean into our attack.
Right. That if we had just attacked more.
I would say the reality was our attack wasn't good enough and we didn't lean into it. And Mikel decided to make it a 20-minute game. He probably should have made it a 30-minute game and gone for it when Curtis Jones was warming up. He should have had his guys ready. Like, there is criticism to be had here. There was a moment where we were still conservative. I was okay with the approach. We should have been ready to go when they were ready to go.
Where you're absolutely right is that if we don't win the title this season, my expectation is it will be because our attack did not fire as well as it should. And that will be an area to watch. We do need to create more shots. We do need to create more chances. Is the challenge doing that? Has it been about conservatism or has it been about the right talent level in the final third to unlock those moments? I think we're going to get a much clearer picture of that. I mean, Pep Guardiola has famously said, I can get them to the final third. They have to do something once they're there. That may be a very convenient excuse or it may be accurate. And I think this season we'll get a much better picture if we ever get some of our good players like Bukayo Saka back. All right, we spent 22 minutes on that. We said we were going to do 20 minutes per topic, and so we were right on track. Well, 2 minutes were the intro, so actually almost exactly 20 minutes on that topic. 9 more topics, 180 more minutes. Here we go. Number 9. Phil, let's do this one quick, shall we? Who won the transfer window?
Oh, God. The Sky Sportsification of this podcast has arrived.
It has arrived.
I would still lean towards Liverpool.
Okay.
But I think Arsenal have had an amazing window. Genuinely amazing. An unprecedented window. But people don't want to hear about that because we've spoken about it for the last month. So I'll touch on Liverpool, who I think have done a great job to rebuild their front line. I think to sell Luis Diaz, who was by all means an excellent servant for them, but heading towards, the latter stages of his career. Can you get some money in for him? Yes, they can. All right, thank you very much. And off you go. They sold Darwin, which is an amazing sale considering his standing and what he'd actually offered them for the price that they brought him in for. Really good. The tragic loss of Jota also forced them into doing some other bits and pieces. That obviously wasn't voluntary, but we don't know whether he would have stayed or left either way. But who they've managed to bring in is really exciting. Florian Wirtz, Alexander Isak, and Hugo Ekitike. If you just look at those three, at face value, it's really impressive. Florian Wirtz has been one of the best young players in Europe for the last 3 years now. Alexander Isak is probably top 2 in the league in terms of strikers, alongside Erling Haaland. Amazing player, British transfer record. They had to spend for him, but he is probably the guy to bank your money on if you're going to do it. And then obviously Hugo Ekitike showing a lot of talent after falling through the PSG or just maybe not quite working out there. It's not the easiest thing to do. He was there when Messi and Neymar and all those guys were there, so it's entirely normal to have fallen out there. Rebuilt his career at Eintracht Frankfurt, showing great things, technique, speed in behind, maybe not the finishing, but he's doing all right so far. So these are like three of the best prospects for each position that you could have strengthened, and I think they've done amazingly well to get those guys in. Where they may fall short is defensively and in midfield.
Let's leave that. That's the next question. Okay.
But in terms of pure talent coming in, and if they can move the needle for you, I think I look at those three. Florian Wirtz might need a bit of time. That's fine. Same with Ekitike, but Isak is he's brilliant. And I think if we are not accepting that or acknowledging that, we're on a bit of the hopium or the copium, because I would have loved him here, and I'm sure everybody listening would have done the same. But yes, there are caveats with him, but he's the best striker that they could have imagined buying this summer.
30 seconds or less, Phil. Is there a team other than Arsenal or Liverpool that stands out to you as having had a very good summer?
In terms of our rivals or just in general?
Just in the league, someone where you say, yep, they nailed that summer, other than two that we...
Sunderland?
Yeah.
I think Sunderland have had an amazing window, genuinely. I think the promoted teams are pretty useless and going straight down, basically. That's just how we've seen it happen in the last couple of seasons. I think the gap is widening between what is an established Premier League club and those coming up, or the yo-yo teams like a Burnley or a Norwich or people like that. But I look at Sunderland, they've brought in some really good young players. They've had some experience come in as well. They've done really well considering who they are and where they are in the league. So I think they've had a really good window as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I would mention Chelsea and say Chelsea have had some really interesting and potentially exciting incomings, but they may have let two of their best players go. So if you said, like, I'm going to get rid of Nani and get Gittins, and I'm going to get rid of Nico Jackson and get Delap, I don't think you've improved. So it's just a weird
with them,
player
it's just
trading
impossible
factory.
to know. It's so hard to know because there's so much churn every year, and 10 players will come in and 10 players will come out. So how do you gauge that? Especially 3 weeks into the season, there's no way to know.
Yeah.
Again, in terms of names and talent, Chelsea will always bring in good players, but can you get them all firing on the pitch? That's another question.
Yeah. All right, Paul, who won the window?
Liverpool, especially if you like a bit of excitement. Now, they won it primarily because they got Isak, which was the prize. What can you say about that? But I think they addressed their challenges, and we addressed ours. And so I think it's much closer than people outside our club would say. We're super strong, basically in every position. And depending on how our attackers work out, we're right there. So it's a little... it's one of those, you got to look back and say halfway through the season and say who won. We should bring this question up again. I guess it'll come up at some point in some form or other, because it's like what you think you start the season with and what you actually have halfway through it. Like if our players all hit, we've had a fantastic winning window on incomings. Outgoings is another topic, but let's keep this to a bite-size reply.
I would simply say this. The question of who had the best window isn't whose players will perform the best, because we don't know. So the question of who had the best window is who got the best talent as of the window in terms of what we think. By the end of the season, we'll know if that's the case or not, right? Players... And
it should really be who fixed their problems the best, which is a very dull, thing. In which case, maybe we had as good as... But they had the more exciting window from a squad profile.
This is why I would say we won the window. And it's going to lead to the next question. I think the goal of a transfer window is to end the window with the best squad to go the distance of a grueling season and win the Premier League.
Yeah.
And as much as I think Liverpool got the prized gem of the transfer window and maybe got the most talented players of the transfer window, the next question is, number 8, did Liverpool leave themselves thin? And Phil, I think it's it would be fun to switch hats and be a Liverpool fan for a day and be in the place where you're like, we just buy all the best attackers. Who cares about the midfield and the defense? We just buy all the best attackers. It's going to be so much fun. But Ryan Gravenberch is not exactly the paragon of deep defensive midfield resilience, right? He's not that archetype. Their fullbacks don't really fullback, and now they may have to use Szoboszlai as a fullback because he's looked like one of the best ones that they have back there. And they have two sensational center backs, and that's it. And one of them is 34, and the other one has an injury track record. So what I would say is Liverpool have left themselves thin, and they can't play all the attackers they've signed at once. So yes, they are going to be hard to stop, and on their day, they're going to win by 5s and 6s, but I think their midfield can get run through. I think their fullbacks can be weak, and any Van Dijk injury that keeps him out for a period, or Konate injury, and it could get really ropey at the back. So do you agree with my assessment?
They've definitely left themselves thin, but again, we're talking about what ifs here. You're saying if Van Dijk gets injured, and last year he didn't. Neither did Mohamed Salah. So I think this doesn't really matter at the end of the day. If it does happen, then we can come back and talk about it again. And obviously, they should have signed Mark Gahey on deadline day, but there were a whole million things going into that deal. I know they've still got Joe Gomez as backup just in case, and they've got Giovanni Leoni, who they signed as well, who can deputise in a cup maybe, or in a Champions League dead rubber.
Is he 18? Is that right?
18, yeah. So that's obviously one for the future, but they've left themselves short in terms of quality for sure, because Gahey would have been a cheat code in strengthening both sides, the right centre-back and the left centre-back. People keep talking about Gravenberch not being a 6, but they won the league with him playing there last year, and he was pretty damn good from what I saw. So maybe this is just... Yeah.
No, I want to pull you up on that for a second. I think the last 3 months of the season, Gravenberch got a little bit found out at 6. And I actually don't think he finished the season particularly strongly there. And there were plenty of games where I saw him chasing shadows a bit and running back towards his goal with his number showing the wrong way. I want to be careful. I mean, they won the league, and there's some suggestion that because they had the league won relatively early, some of their down the stretch performances don't matter. But is that copium? Do you not see it that way at all?
I think it's us hyper-focusing or hyper-analyzing an issue they don't particularly care about.
Okay.
Because I think with Gravenberch, with McAllister, with Endo, they can get by.
Okay.
And I think we've seen with Szoboszlai that Slot has a good, track record of putting people in different positions, getting the best out of them. Is it ideal? No. But I just look across the market and I say, who's an obvious option that Liverpool could have gone for that's a more 66 than what Gravenberch is offering? Adam Wharton, but even then, he's not a guy that should be in a single pivot, to be honest.
He can't stay fit, unfortunately, either.
He can't stay fit, but also his strengths are going the other way,
yes,
even though he can do the defensive work. So I think, yes, you can look at Gravenberch and say, is that a point of weakness? But they could make do with who they have, and mostly they'll be relying on their attacking talent to do the damage at the other end, so that doesn't really matter. If Van Dijk does his ACL next week, then we can have a conversation about it. But for now, they're still very strong, even if depth-wise, we look in a better way.
Yeah, just so we're clear, they're going to win the league or finish second, right? Like, that's my appraisal of them. So I'm not saying they left themselves thin and now they're going to be 8th. The funny thing is, Mascara, Nkapie, Zubamendi, Norgard. You give them to Liverpool, right? And you give Liverpool, let's say, Gyokeres and Nani Madueke. And you give us Isak and Wirtz, right? And you could make an argument we had each other's summer, right? Like, we needed the 6. I get it. We need to rebuild our midfield. But you see what I'm saying, right? Like, we addressed their weaknesses and they addressed our weaknesses in some way. Paul, are they thin?
Yes. If we ignore all the flaws in your point, we definitely see your point.
Yeah, if you ignore that we absolutely did need to rebuild our midfield, that injuries cost us all our defenders by the end of last season, and that we needed multiple attacking players, my point is absolutely spot on. The other thing, are they too thin, but also have we underrated the loss of Trent a bit? I feel like we've just hand-waved them losing one of the best players in Premier League history, who, for the style they want to play of direct, sort of turn turnovers in possession into quick lightning strike attacks. There was no one better at flipping the pitch than him. So are they thin, and is Trent's loss going to be more keenly felt than we maybe acknowledge?
No, I don't think so. I think Wirtz solves that problem for them and lets them attack from where they're supposed to be attacking from. And they couldn't carry that overhead with the two centre-backs they had of having to cover for Trent. So, it's probably a bit of a wash in terms of creativity and fixes a little bit of a problem. But I'm with you in spirit, which is, I'm more of an Old Testament God kind of guy. Get in there, God, start smiting everybody. We have the depth for it.
The cruel version of God, in other words. That's the one you like. The vengeful God.
Spread it around this year. We'll take some, they'll take some. And I think we would do better if God gets his smiting game in place. Show us who you love, God. And get out there. Smite all equally. I think that's where the Premier League becomes a marathon, not a sprint. Where our depth, where our strength, where Zubimendi really starts to make if we get it close and we're strong this year, then I'm with you, Elliot, that Zubimendi is a key player and a key difference between us and Liverpool, and is the most important part of the pitch when you have a functioning team, or to get a functioning team, and it can be the difference. It can be the counterbalance to, look, Isak can solve lots of your problems, but if Isak gets his fair share of challenges, fitness-wise, etc., then we're built for a marathon, not a sprint. So that should start to show up the gaps in Liverpool's recruitment for the summer.
Two bullet points here. I mean, one, to be fair to them, I think they're moving to more of a 4-2-3-1, and that makes it less of a reliance on a single pivot at the back like Gravenberch, and to Phil's point, then I think you can manage those spaces more, and your defensive frailties are a little less evident because you just have a little more of a secure rest defense, right, in terms of where the players are positioned. The second thing is, it's really fucking rich of me to be like, if they get an injury when we already have 5 of them. So you know what I mean? Like, Slot does have a track record of keeping players fit. I don't know if that's luck or talent. We do not. So we have to look at our own house a little when it comes to injuries before pointing to theirs. So that is fair. Okay.
And that's what we've done. It's the test of two strategies, right? We've gone for the depth way. They've gone for the big individual talent one. So the end of the season will tell us everything we need to know.
But I've always said this, and I need to be honest about it. I don't think you win things if your best players are out, no matter how much depth you have. Like, if Saka misses 5 months this season, no matter how much I rate Nani Madueke, I still don't think we can win the league. So you at some level, maybe Liverpool are right. What's the point of depth? Because if you lose a Virgil van Dijk for 5 months, it doesn't matter who you bought. They're not Virgil van Dijk. You know what I mean? One of the best defenders ever.
Jesus, we've
7.
talked you out of our side of it. Well
Thanks,
done,
guys.
Elliot.
Yeah.
We lost him.
There
We
goes my
lost him,
rosy
everybody.
disposition. Number 7. How strong are the teams chasing Liverpool and Arsenal? Let's do this quick. 2 minutes on the clock. Phil, how strong are the teams chasing Liverpool and Arsenal?
Again, very difficult to tell. I don't know yet. There's not a big enough sample size with Chelsea. They are going to be there or thereabouts, but ready to go the distance? I don't think so. I think last year they had the luxury of basically pissing away 95% of their European season until they got to the final. I mean, they basically changed 11s. So who had the luxury of doing that last year? Cole Palmer wasn't even registered until January. So that's going to be a big thing for them. They're bringing in a lot of new young players who will need time to adapt to the league, to Maresca. So I think they'll be good, but to stay the course, probably not. Manchester City, I like a couple of their signings, but I have to say I'm not convinced with them as a whole. I think they've done a few weird ones since January. Not overly convinced in where they've spent their money, how much they've spent on certain players. I think they needed to rebuild because we've seen Kevin De Bruyne leave, Edison leave, Gundogan leave, Kyle Walker leave. So these are big pillars and key reference points for them over the last decade that they're going to need to replace, and that would be difficult for anybody. I'm just not entirely convinced in a couple of their wide players, i.e. Doku. Savinho hasn't really shown that he's an end product guy yet, and I don't trust them defensively. I think now, especially with Donnarumma coming in, how the hell are you going to build up? How the hell are you going to do that? Because John Stone's got a patchy fitness record. Rodri is in and out of the team now. Are you going to build up with Ruben Diaz and Donnarumma? Doesn't sound good to me.
I hope so.
That's a lot of weight on Tijani Reinders doing something, you know? So
Yeah.
I think they will be there. Absolutely. One of the best teams in the league. But to go all the way, I'm not sure. Spurs and United, I'm not even going to entertain. Then it just becomes the best of the rest kind of thing.
Yeah. You know what my expert analysis is? We're 3 games into the season and everybody looks like shit. Villa are shit. Newcastle are shit. Spurs.
It's not unusual.
It's weird, right? Spurs got dominated at home by Bournemouth. United should have lost to Burnley, having been knocked out by Grimsby. They look shit. City have been run through multiple times. They've already lost twice, and the only game they won is against the team that might finish rock bottom. We, to be fair, have looked okay, but haven't lit anybody up attacking-wise other than Leeds. Liverpool, depending on which website you use, are slightly negative expected goal difference this season, having been pegged back from a 2-goal lead by Bournemouth and barely won, getting outplayed by 10-man Newcastle and barely winning, and needing a 32-yard free kick to get any goals against Arsenal. It is a weird season. Nobody looks great. So, Paul, how strong are the teams chasing Liverpool and Arsenal?
I think you guys have done a great summary.
All right, moving on.
What intrigues me on it is that Pep Guardiola should have left. But he's so interwoven into the ownership of the... He said it himself in the past. He's basically said, we wear each other out, me and my squad, after X number of years, whatever that is. 4, 5, 3, 4 years is probably max. But he's part of the Manchester City ownership, club, empire, and he's not ready to give up managing, so he has stayed. It's also fascinating how far he has diverged from Arteta or Arteta from him. I never pictured Arteta's Arsenal being this different to Manchester City's blueprint of a couple of years ago. But, I always thought it would diverge. He's his own man. You make your own decisions. You got to live within your own emotional landscape, and there's no way you have the same emotional landscape as Pep Guardiola. We're such a different... Okay, some of the principles... The bedrock principles are there. We're so different to them. Pep's Manchester City still looks very, very small in the Premier League. Lots of small, dainty little players. They'll have really good days where they'll convince us they're going to be a real force, but I don't see how they go in 2 big competitions and compete across the season. And you look at the size, youth, and athleticism of our team, we got horsepower, so... that doesn't scare me.
If Erling Haaland were to miss a chunk of the season, they could finish mid-table. I know that sounds insane, but he is such a unique force of nature, and the rest of their team feels very lightweight. I've been surprised at just how easy they've been to run through. You know what I think is a problem for Pep? Sometimes if you stay long enough and you're successful enough, you just start amusing yourself. I think Pep has just been I'll see if I can get Oscar Bob to work as a starting player in the Premier League. And he's a talented young guy, but, I'll give him a shot. And Reinders and Turkey will be fun to play with. That's a fun... And, not to say they haven't signed good players. What?
It's like he's trying to win a bet.
Yeah, the only thing that could change this, obviously, is the Ballon d'Or winning best central midfielder in the world has been out with an ACL, and he's only just come back. He's 30, he's recovering from ACL. If he can get back to Ballon d'Or level, all bets are off again because he changes everything about Manchester City. If he can't, then I think it's going to be a long season for them. Okay, we're going to talk about Miles and Ethan. We're going to talk about Gyokeres. We're going to talk about Mikel's mix for the midfield, Martinelli, and who's going to win the Champions League. But if you're going to watch any of that, it's possible that you may need to watch stuff that is geo-locked in your location. And if you're trying to watch stuff that's geo-locked in your location, then you need... Phil, you know what you need. What do you need?
A VPN.
Which one?
You tell me.
NordVPN.
NordVPN, Phil.
Phil's contract says he's not allowed to talk about VPNs.
Yeah, Phil's of that age and demographic where he looks like he does a lot of illegal stuff. You and I are beyond that. You would think he'd be on this, Elliot.
See, no, it's really just the drugs you consume, right? Phil is still in the age of consuming illegal drugs for recreational use, whereas you and I are consuming illegal drugs
just trying
for
to keep it going.
Keeping our hair, keeping things standing up straight, if you know what I mean. We're different ends of the illegal drug consumption. But We're not talking about illegal drugs. We're talking about NordVPN, and those two things should not be conflated for the sake of our relationship with the brand. NordVPN is the best VPN in terms of speed, in terms of reliability. It is the best VPN in terms of ease of use. It's an app. You click, and you can watch things. Nothing is worse than when someone sends you a video. They're like, oh, my God, can you believe this? And you click, and it's like not available in your area. It's like, I can't believe that's not available in my area. But it will be available in your area with NordVPN. You can watch the streams you want to watch if you're going over to the UK to see a game at the Emirates. But then you can't watch your games because they still have something called a 3 p.m. blackout because apparently it's 1947 or whatever. Like this is not a thing anymore because you have NordVPN. You can watch streaming services that aren't available in your area anyway. Plus it has threat protection. And if you're going to be on certain sites, you need threat protection. NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. You're going to get a huge discount off your Nord plan plus 4 additional months on top. That's a good deal. NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. NordVPN.com/ what was it again? ArsenalVision. Phil, is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Nailed it. Okay, next
Elliot,
question.
can I check something?
Oh, boy.
The amazing thing about the videos you were sent that blows your mind is that they're not available in your area.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, how would I know?
That is not what amazes me when somebody sends me a video, I can tell you.
How would you know if you can't watch it in your area? You can't know what's amazing about the video. You know what? I'm moving on, and that's for the best for all of us, and you should heed my warning. Okay, number 6. Paul, what are Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri's current Arsenal roles for the season?
Well, Miles Lewis-Skelly is a left back.
Cool. You nailed it.
Steps into midfield from left back.
Okay. Enough of the bit. My point is...
No, that wasn't a bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right.
But clarify, sharpen the question for me so I can get to it.
Okay. Let me explain the question. I thought it was self-evident. These are players who will be curious, I think, about where they fit in the pecking order and how they will be used this season. We've just signed in Capie. Calafiori's been starting. Where Miles is concerned, we seem to not want to use him off the wing. Max came in against Liverpool. We now have Eze, who is another creative midfield option, although maybe more left-sided than right-sided. Kai Havertz will come back. Mikel Merino started at Liverpool. Odegaard obviously is still there. These are important young players, star players from our academy. What is their role this season? Have I articulated the question sufficiently?
All right. So with MLS, I was kind of thinking the old, we're going to see him more as a midfielder. I don't think that's right. I think he's very much and will continue to be a left back who does Miles Lewis-Skelly things, who's still growing and learning. And both of them have gone down the pecking order. There's no two ways about it, right? MLS has gone down the pecking order because Calafiori has stayed fit and because Mikel Arteta loves Calafiori, absolutely loves him. And if Calafiori can keep his defensive nous and sharpen that up and learn how an offside trap works and not get twisted about by his tricky winger that's facing him. You know, he survived and I think did really well against Mo Salah. I thought he was going to have more trouble. But had he had more trouble against Mo Salah, then that's the battle between the two of them. So, but he's definitely down the pecking order. I don't think necessarily Hincapié I've got an open mind on that, has come in ahead of him as a left back. You know, he's got a season to settle in. There'll be rotation, there'll be time at CB and maybe some time at left back and different profiles. But I think he's kind of number 2-ish at left back, and it depends a little bit of the kind of game. Like if you take the Liverpool game, the one thing I think is unfair is I think Arteta was trying to be aggressive and attacking with the Calafiori option. That was how we were supposed to hurt them. It didn't quite pan out quite the way Arteta expected in terms of the number of times Calafiori got at them. And so I think the neutrals didn't understand how much of a gamble that particular play is. And it's something Arteta is going to lean into more and more. But he loves Calafiori. It's all about can Calafiori get his defensive game where we need it to be. And I think similarly, Ethan's gone down a notch in the rankings because we're going to lean into Eze more, and we got Havertz and Gyokeres, and Arteta is going to want to mostly play those guys in most games. And yes, it's going to squeeze Nwaneri, but then Odegaard may have more of a fight for his play. It's up to Ethan and it's up to Miles to step up as well. But this is definitely a season where they have one more player ahead of them from whichever side of the pitch it's coming at them. It could be Eze from the left is bumping Nwaneri's minutes from the right, or from a left 8 position even. So yeah, they've got to step up this year. They've got to grow, and it's the challenge for them. But yeah, they both got a battle on their hands. Miles is not a shoe-in for that starting spot. I think that's very, very clear.
Phil?
Their roles are whatever we need them to be. And I think last year broke our brains a little bit because we had an 18-year-old Miles Lewis-Skelly basically playing every game at left back, and a 17-year-old / 18-year-old Ethan being our right-hand side when Bukayo Saka was injured. And I'm sorry, they are still developing. Any team with genuine title ambitions or Champions League ambitions, barring Barcelona, because they've got a freak like Lamine Yamal in there, and maybe Kubasi as well, will not get to where they want to be with two 18-year-olds in their team starting regularly. And that's not a slight on them or their quality, because I know it's there and I've seen it, and they both bring really exciting things to the squad. But it's just normal. This is normal. They were only playing last year because there were big gaps, and they did amazingly well when given those opportunities. But of course they've fallen down the pecking order because people are fit again. So I'm not in the headspace of overthinking this, because I think they're signed on, they're committed, they're part of the squad, they know what they need to do. I think in the case of Ethan, it's a bit more interesting, because I agree with what Clive said maybe a couple of weeks ago, is that we shouldn't just see him as the Ødegaard right 8 replacement. Where I think we spoke about this earlier on in the summer about what should he be this year, and I said he should be the Trossard. He should be the Trossard replacement, in that he can play left, he can play right, he can play as an 8, he can play behind the striker, he could play as a false 9 maybe. That's what Ethan needs to be doing now, not just focusing on being this new revolutionary midfielder that can come in for Ødegaard or replace Ødegaard. He needs to be a guy that we can rely on in 3 or 4 different positions at any time. Miles is a bit different. I don't really get the clamour to put him in midfield right away. Do I think he can play there? Yes. And let's be honest, he basically does when he inverts as a left back. But I think it's perfectly fine for him to drop a little bit. It's his second season. People have figured him out. He's come down from the high and the confidence that he was playing with last year. It's just normal. These are normal things. And people have, been a bit grumpy about it already because they're not playing, but I don't see it like that. I thought Ethan did really well against Leeds. I think Miles will do really well whenever he comes on. But we want to win stuff. And I think healthy competition is only a good thing for this squad, because for too long, through quality or injuries or otherwise, we haven't had it. So this has all broken our brains a little bit, but I think it's a really good thing.
Gosh, that's really good stuff from both of you. I think there is this weird thing that we do. We demand that the manager win things. We also demand that the manager create a pathway for 15-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds. And I admit that managers have a lot of responsibilities, and winning things is chief among them, but there are other responsibilities, platforming and developing your young talent among them. I think we have a pretty good situation developing with that. There aren't a lot of teams that have anywhere near the talent we have coming through our academy. Just the simple fact of having Bukayo Saka alone puts us at the top of the pyramid. But the goal is to win. And to your point, Phil, the goal is not to make sure that Ethan and Miles have their best possible season. Talent wins out. Ethan and Miles are incredibly talented, and my belief is over time they are going to be too good to keep out of the squad, as is the case with all-star talent, as it was with Bukayo Saka. I don't think you should go into a season saying our plan is to make sure that these two 18-year-olds start as many games as possible, regardless of whether that's what's best for us to win right now. I do think I have a big understanding of what we're doing with the Miles situation. He was trained as a midfielder. I think he had a great season at left back. I don't think the plan was for him to be our left back. He's developing there. He might place... I agree with Paul that I don't think midfield is in his future as a huge role, but given Norgaard's injury issues and age, it may be the case that when we want Zubi to take some time out of the squad, Miles might get some League Cup minutes there. Now, we'll see. The Ethan one, the only thing that I have a slight issue with. Ethan Nwaneri came into the team at 17, and at 17 flashed the kind of talent to make him one of the elite wide players in the league. That's how good he was. Gets it on his left, can score from anywhere. The decision to convert him to a midfielder and not see him as a winger at all, if that is the case, that feels a little unnecessary. Now, maybe we feel it's necessary because we're so confident in Max's talent that we have to create a path for both of them, which fair enough. But for me at Liverpool, if you said, who's a player we could have brought on who, with the quality in their left foot and some of the experience they already have at Premier League level, could win you a game from nothing or get you a point back from nothing at Anfield, it's Ethan off the right. But it seems pretty clear we've decided Ethan is now a midfielder. And that would be my only thing, is that when someone at 17 flashes that kind of talent from a wide position, I don't know that I'd be so quick to move them, because to me, he's Iron Robin. He can get it on his left at any time and score from anywhere. I'd want to cultivate that a little more. But also, this is important, I know a little bit less about this than Mikel Arteta. So I think we're gonna see how he develops in midfield. I'll be very curious to see what happens with these players. But to Phil and Paul's point, what I'm most concerned about is Arsenal winning things. The most talented players will wind up on the pitch long term. That always happens. Next one, number 5. Any new quick thoughts, Paul, on Eze post Liverpool game?
He looked really good. He seemed to, the promise we had of him in our heads, he didn't get a lot of time there. He didn't get a lot of ball. Everything he did something. We saw him creating problems off the left wing, problems that we haven't created for some time in terms of the trickery and the ball across the box, super clever, always heads up, always looking to connect. There's much more intelligence in his play than we have seen in recent times, combined with, trickery, power, speed, and he's really good on the counter, the transition, picking it up in and around our box, and it's one of the great frustrations we all have is when you get a great counter-attacking opportunity, and we've seen it certainly this early season where we're in a great position and we make daft choices as we go into the opposition half, and like the guys ahead, like he'll tell people where they needed to be, where they let him down on the counter, and he's going to make really good choices in the counter-attacking space, and I think we're going to love him. And we saw 2-3 situations in this game where we looked really sharp on the counter. So it's only a few minutes, but yeah, he's exciting, and he's going to get the crowd up, especially obviously at home. He's going to get a buzz and excitement where we have had times where we're like, how do we do something more than what we're doing here? How do we stop passing it around the semicircle here? So yeah, he's hinted at the promise we've expected from him. So I was excited by that. You could almost say cameo, but yeah, it was good.
Phil, what about you?
No new thoughts. I think he's going to come in and be the left winger. I think he offers us stuff in the half spaces that we need and that we've lacked. I think he can combine with people. We saw it a little bit with Odegaard. I think he can run in behind. He's not the obvious Martinelli-esque speedster that we'd normally associate with the role, but he's more than capable of running in behind in transition as well. He's done it on multiple occasions for Palace. I think he'll help Gyokeres by being a bit closer to him as well. I'm really excited by this one. I'm not putting all of my hopes and dreams on him because I think we need to be a squad and score from many different areas, but in terms of what Eze can bring, for me, it's very clear, and that's goals and assists and fun. So nothing's changed for me. I would have liked to seen him, like many people, come on earlier.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I would just say the only thing that I think I learned from it is the suggestion that he's not a left winger and can't play from the left wing just surprises me, and that's not a problem. He's going to play from the left wing. There's also a little rumor breaking, by the way, as we record, that Leo Trossard could be off to Turkey. And if Leo goes, then even more convinced that Eze will play from the left. But yeah, the only thing I have from this performance, he's really good. He can play from the left. The idea that he can't play from the left, I think, is nonsense. I think we got to lose Paul, and we still got a ways to go here. But Paul, any last words before you say goodbye?
No, I'm going to get off so we can speed up getting through these questions. You'll track the third.
The listeners, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
All right, bye, Paul.
Bye.
And then there were two. The countdown is actually, we count down the number of people on the podcast, and then they just keep getting down until we're to 0 people on the podcast.
It's like a game show. Yeah.
It's a game show. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I like this one, though. I wrote these, so of course I do. Phil, will Mikel mix up the midfield this season? And just to give you a little more depth in that question, because obviously Paul struggled with one of my questions earlier. He's now got Eze and Odegaard he can play together, right? He's got Ethan as an option. He's got Kai when he's back. He's got Rice. He's got Zubi. He's got Norgard. He's got Miles if he wants to move him in there. He's got Marino. He can not only rotate out players, but he can rotate out profiles. So do you think we'll see more of a mix and match midfield where we get Eze and Odegaard in midfield together with Nane and Sak on the wings? Or do you think Mikel's pretty straightforward? We'll get the kind of more one in, one out rotation when we have it.
I really hope so, because we've got the players and the profiles to be able to do it now. And my issue with Mikel is that he's very set. When we're playing a certain way, he's very set on that way. Whether it's an inverted left back, whether it's the left 8 being a box crasher, whether it's going towards Bukayo Saka and using that triangle with Ben White and Odegaard, he's very set on his play and his principles. And I think that can only take you so far, because people learn about you and they adapt to you. And we've seen that now with Saka being triple teamed and then Martinelli having all that space over there. It's because nobody rates him as a threat or as a danger, so they leave him. And I think towards the end of last season, people were figuring out how Miles was playing the role a little bit in midfield. I think Declan Rice has been really good in his transition as the number 8, but also, did we get everything that we needed from him last season? I don't think so. So it's just, how do you make yourselves more varied, more unpredictable? And I think we've certainly done that with some of the signings we've made, but I think there's more than enough scope to be different in midfield. Whether you play Zubimendi and no Rice and put 2 more attacking players ahead of him. You could play Rice as the sole 6 and put 2 players ahead of him. You can play Rice and Zubi as a double pivot and then have a number 10 ahead of them. It's really easy to be able to chop and change with those two, because they give you so much, both as individuals and as a partnership. Sometimes you can sit Odegaard down and put Eze and Ethan in there. You know, we have really got to be more open about this, because teams are smart. Teams are really, really, really smart now. They're switched on. Managers, coaches, analysts, even the players themselves, they're all super fit. So being able to do different things at different parts and times of the game is crucial. So I would be very upset if we're sitting here in May and it's been the whole season and all we have to say is that it's been Zubimendi, Rice and Odegaard with zero flexibility. I would have been very disappointed in that. I would hope and expect Mikel to be brave at times. I'm not saying every game. I'm not saying go to the Etihad and play 2 8s. But if we're playing a Burnley at home, if we're playing a Wolves at home, even if we're playing a Brentford or someone like that, can you be a little bit brave, put your principles to the side for one weekend and just say, today we need goals, today we need runners, today we need a bit extra on the edge of the box. How do I put that in the team? And I would just like to see a bit more from him in that sense, to try and get more of our attacking talent on the pitch at once, instead of literally taking Saka off, putting Madueke on, taking Martinelli off, putting Trossard on, things like that, which is basically what it's been for the last 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've just not really enjoyed is putting players in boxes, and the player that gets put in the box more than anyone, weirdly, somehow is Declan Rice, where we've just decided this £100 million superstar midfielder with an engine unlike any other can't play 6. Like, someone, and I include myself in this group, once said maybe he's not the best ball progressor passing wise, which might be true, might not. And then it was like, well, he can't play 6. It's just like,
but then you overcompensate elsewhere. You know, that's how you do it.
Yeah, but it doesn't even matter. Because first of all, it may not even be true. But like, yeah, to your point, I love Zubimendi. Put Declan Rice as a single pivot because his superpower is how much pitch he can cover. And play Eze and Odegaard. And play Nani and Saka and Gyokeres. I don't know if it'll work. You know, we tend to do this FIFA thing of I want to get all the fun players on the pitch. And FIFA, and this is going to break hearts, isn't real life. But I do think that would be something that I would like to see. Does it give you more ability to access central spaces? Does it give you more ability to balance left and right flank? Does it give the defenders more things to worry about? Does it give more opportunity to play balls into Gyokeres? I'd just like to see it. More top-of-the-box shots that lead to parries and rebounds that can fall to players. Will we see it? I'm curious. I'm very, very curious. Okay, number 3, we're getting down to the end here. What's your current Gyokeres evaluation?
My current Gyokeres evaluation is that it's been a fine start and a bit of a difficult start as well, because we've played United away, and no matter what you think of them, where they are at the moment, they always turn up for us at Old Trafford and they give us a game, which is fine, and we seem to struggle there. So that's a hard game. Leeds, easier opposition. We're at home. You'd expect him to score. He scores twice. And then at Anfield, that is probably the toughest away day he will have this season against Konate and Van Dijk, who were faultless on the day. To be honest, I think he got marshalled really well. They bullied him out into the wide spaces. They crowded him out when they needed to. It was a really hard day for him. But in terms of him, his style of play, are we adapting to it? What do I think of him generally? I said it when we signed him. He is not going to be a guy that wows us with his amazing footballing quality, the ability to combine with others and work around defenders. He is a guy who runs hard in behind, who likes the physical battle and wants to get his shots off. There's no nuance to this game. There's nothing that we need to squint to see. There's no tactical analysis that we need to talk about with him, like angle bias or reference points or anything like that. He's just a meat and drink centre forward who's going to be there to fight defenders and shoot. And my opinion on him is the same as that. I think we need to learn. We are still learning to play with him, to play around him, learning how we can help him. And I think the injury to Kai Havertz was mostly seen as a good thing, which I think it is. But I think we're going to miss him. I thought we missed him on Sunday. I think it would have been a nice option for us to maybe rotate one in and see how they both get on, or maybe play both of them at the same time. It just takes a little bit of pressure away from him. Kai's there to prove a point as well. But now it's all him. We have to lean into that, and it won't always look nice. We need to get used to playing with a low-touch striker again, which we don't really like to do at Arsenal because we're used to Jesus floating about. We're used to Kai Havertz doing bits in all different phases. You know, we didn't like Eddie. We didn't like Eddie playing because he didn't do enough. And Gyokeres is basically an Eddie on steroids in the way he plays in his end product.
But not actually on steroids. We're not accusing anyone of anything. I've seen him with the shirt off.
Metaphorical steroids.
There you
go. I think he's just going to look bubbly and bumpy and clunky, and he'll score 15 goals. That's just where I am with him. I think you'll see him a little bit figured out, because I don't think he's an elite player, but we haven't paid for an elite player. We've paid for someone who can help bridge the gap when we play the low blocks, when we can play lower teams at home, to get us goals away from home, just to give us a boost basically when we need it. So he's been fine. He hasn't been amazing, but he still needs to get up to speed. He's not fit yet. It's just what it is. I'm really looking forward to the Forest game, actually, because I think he and Eze can build a really nice relationship together, because he plays very closely to his centre forward. If you've watched him play for Palace, you'll know that he and Mateta like to be very close together. And I think Jim Daly spoke about that on the podcast as well. So this is how we help him. It's not just playing the ball in behind quickly and letting him run onto stuff. It's about how we get around him, support him, and feed off him as well. So it's been a hard start, so anyone jumping to conclusions now is a bit silly. But I never thought he was our saviour, and I don't think he will be. I just think he's a good player who'll score goals.
Can I ask you a question, though? The one thing I've had a hard time kind of understanding, seeing him at Arsenal versus Sporting, is both in terms of when we did the scouting videos, but also just the data, his underlying metrics and his actual metrics. If you don't like underlyings, if you just prefer things like assists, his creative numbers were good. His XA per 90 and his assists were good. It wasn't like he was a zero-touch striker, and he did create things for his teammates. Is it really just a byproduct of he had such gravity dragging defenders away that it was easy to create opportunities for his teammates. What is the reason why we've seen, no indication of that being in his game so far in your estimation versus the fact that those numbers were really pretty impressive at Sporting?
The reason why we haven't seen that is because he's playing Premier League teams and not Rio Ave and Estoril and Boavista every week.
Even at Coventry, though, 10 assists 3 seasons ago, 10 assists 2 seasons ago, 7 assists the season before. It's been in his game to create things for others.
It's there. I think he'll get 5 this year.
Okay.
And I think that's a very conservative guess as well. I think he's got potential to do more purely because of the area he stands in, where he occupies defenders. He's just naturally in and around the goal, but he's not a good footballer, and that's fine. We haven't bought him to be a good footballer.
Maybe one of our best chances we created against Liverpool was created by Gyokeres, wasn't it? Wasn't it against Liverpool? He made that sort of inside right run,
and he knocked it back
pulled
to
it back
Timber.
to Nani.
I think it might have been. I think it was Timber, and his shot
Nani
was
had a
blocked.
shot blocked, and then maybe it was Timber. Point is, it was a good move. It was a good pick out. I think he can do that stuff. I think we will. I think the idea that he will do nothing but run onto things and score goals is slightly wrong. I don't think he's going to be a huge build-up player. But I think in the final third, if he runs the channels and drags defenders away, he can find his teammates in the box. I think that he can do. So it'll just be interesting to see. Are you
worried, or are you just thinking he needs a bit of time?
So let me say this clearly, because I don't want it to be misunderstood. I think he's looked pretty much like crap. I am not remotely worried. Okay? So those are two different things. I want to be clear, right? I don't think he's looked very good. I don't think we've looked very good. And even despite that, we have a 5-0 win and win at Old Trafford in a game that we, basically nullified at Anfield. I'm not remotely worried. I just don't think he's looked very good. I don't think he looks fully up to speed. I don't think the players are all on the same wavelength. But you can already see he's getting better at the pressing. That wasn't good to start. Already, I think, a lot better. The running, he was making runs deep into the 90th minute, against Liverpool. I think he's getting up to his fitness levels. I don't think the players playing with him totally haven't figured out yet. There's lots of videos you can go on the internet and watch, or, you could use a VPN if you need to. But where you could just see runs that aren't found. Obviously at Anfield, Gabriel Martinelli had a breakaway moment where he could have played in Gyokeres and instead took it to the byline himself. So there's been some missed opportunities. Do I think he looks good? No, I don't think he's looked good. Am I worried? I'm not remotely worried. And by the way, he has 2 goals. One that is brilliantly taken, individualistic goal that shows that he can bully Premier League defenders, even if it is more bottom of the table level Premier League defenders, and a penalty that obviously showed that he has not the slightest bit of anxiety about being the man in the Premier League. So no, not worried at all. Just not impressed yet, is what I would say. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
Yeah. Last 2. Number 2, I put it down near the bottom because, frankly, I just don't want it to be the headline discussion of the pod, but I think it is still one we have to discuss. What's next for Gabriel Martinelli?
Oh, man. This is a sad one. He's getting pushed into Smith Rowe territory. That's what's happening with Martinelli. And I think it's a big shame because, as you said earlier in the pod, we had him and Saka going together on either flank, scoring goals, creating assists, looking great, playing with this kind of youthful exuberance and vibrancy and such a speed and it was amazing. Those first few months with Jesus in the team were just unbelievable. Like the football we were watching there with Xhaka as the left 8 with Zinchenko inverting, it was like, what the hell has happened here? You could see instantly that the levels were raised. And I think part of why Martinelli looked so good early on in that season, but also generally for Arsenal, was that he was playing on instinct. He was playing with a desire to get as close to the goal as quickly as possible. There was no thought about beating people or looking for people by the touchline. He just wanted to get his head down and run towards the goal. How can I be close to goal? Where am I standing on the penalty spot to look for rebounds? And that was his sole goal. He didn't care about anything else. But now, as Arsenal get better, The teams change the way that they play against us, and you need more. You can't just be a head down, where can I get to goal quickly? You need a bit of technique. You have to find a way to bring people away from space. You need to find a way to combine with others. And I just don't think he's got it. He hasn't got it in the level that we need it to be anyway. And I'm not saying that he's a bad player. I don't think he's, a zero by any means in terms of his technique or anything like that. I just don't think it's at the required standard anymore. And the level that Saka has managed to reach hasn't helped, because he's got the worst marker alongside him, because he's just blown past him now. And it's a big shame. And it's nothing bad, right? Some players can get you to a certain place, but they can't get you further. And I think that's what happened with Smith Rowe. He came in that year. He was incredible for us. Saka and Emil Smith Rowe, it was the song, we loved him. He was scoring goals, but we realised very quickly that despite the injuries, he wasn't really at the level to be able to do what we needed him to do. And I just think a similar thing has applied to Martinelli. Very useful player, can still be in the squad, can still score goals for Arsenal, but he's having a huge crisis of confidence at the moment. He's doing silly things. I don't think we're platforming him well either, and it's just exposed him. And yeah, I think we'll have this year with him, and he'll be gone next year. It's just a time and a chance for us to upgrade. I think we've done it with Eze anyway. He'll play against Forest in our next game from the left, and Martinelli will be on the naughty step, basically, not because he's done anything wrong, but it's just a time to reflect. How am I getting back to the level where I was at? And what do I need to do to get there? Because he's redundant. He's redundant for us at the moment. He doesn't do anything of need or of use in the final third. And that's a big shame, because I thought he was going to be an output monster. When I saw him, I thought we were going to get 4 shots per 90, 2 shots per 90 on target, 15 goals plus per season, terrorising defenders all game. And to see that change has frankly been quite sad, because we know what he can do, but we're just not seeing it anymore.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with any of that. The funny thing is, Gabriel Martinelli, and let's be clear about this, good player. I just think the thing that's frustrated is he hasn't developed from what he was at 20. If you look at that season, that exciting 20, 21-year-old season, when he had 15 goals in the Premier League and 5 assists, 20 goal contributions at 20, 21 years old, he did it on 9 expected goals, right? He outperformed. He had a 0.29 XG per 90. The next season, 0.31 XG per 90. The next season, 0.29 XG per 90. Now, the thing that really dropped off last season was expected assists, which went from 0.29 to 0.27 to 0.19. His shots per 90. Okay, something that I like to look at for attackers, I think really important. Again, 2.55, 2.59. But last season, 2.16. This season, by the way, he has 1 shot. His take-ons and dribbling, right? Something that I think is really important for a wide player, especially your success rate. So he's gone from 1.94 to 1.79 to 1.3. But his success rate has gone from 45% to 35% to 30%. And oh, by the way, 0% success this season. He has not completed a dribble. Again, 3 games in. Throw that away. He's only played 2 games. But, it's not just that he doesn't look like the player he was. I think it's actually more that he just hasn't developed. When I see a really bright, talented 20-year-old, in my mind, I think, imagine what they'll be when they hit their prime 23, 24. And the biggest issue for Martinelli is he's still that same player. The head's still down. The decision-making is sometimes good and sometimes not good. Even if you want to say, well, he hasn't been put in the right positions, it hasn't been fair. There's now a lot of video evidence building up of good positions he has been in where he has not been able to make the right contribution. And so then the question becomes, how long do you wait? How long do you wait for a player you rate and you love and you care about and you're really excited about when the demand is also win a title or you're sacked? Win a title or this era is a failure. Well, how fair is it to Bukayo Saka, to William Saliba, to Declan Rice? How fair is it to Gabriel, right? How fair is it to Timber? How fair is it to those players? if the thing that you feel is holding you back is not getting enough output on the left and you persist out of a sense of loyalty, well, you owe loyalty to those other players who are probably watching this. The Gyokeres who's making a run and not getting the ball, right? The other players who are sprinting on the counter only to be frustrated by the final action. That can destroy a group too, persisting too long with a player where it's not getting done. So I still think there's huge value to Martinelli. But I also think we have to be aware of the fact too that when you put a 21, 22-year-old on 180 grand a week, you've really committed to them. I think we've given him plenty of time. And at this point, Phil, I'm with you. I think it is time for other players to get a chance to see if they can make the left work. I would also say, as a final point, I think the best performances we've seen off the left the last couple of seasons have not been his. I think they've been Leo's, especially in the big moments. So,
no question about that, yeah.
All right, let's finish with this. A little light one. Last one. We've been thinking all Premier League, but it's coming back around. That old Champions League, big ears, the one that I want to win maybe more than any of them. Are PSG favorites for the Champions League again?
Favorites? Out and out favorites? No. I think they're in a group of teams.
Who?
I think
who
last
are
year.
Favorites?
Yeah, I think last year they had a very impressive second half of the season in particular, where everything just seemed to click for them. A lot of their young players found their feet in the side. Their midfield trio were unstoppable and playing the best football I've seen in a long time, maybe since the Barcelona midfield three were doing their thing under Pep. You know, Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz and João Neves were unbelievable. They had Kvicha, Doué, Dembele. You know, it all just came together. And fair play to them and to Luis Enrique for that, because they were outstanding and they deserved to win. I still think they have a big luxury every week of pissing around in Ligue 1. They don't have consistent competition that wears them out physically or mentally, and I think that's a huge advantage. Some people might say that it's the opposite of that, but I think if you can keep legs fresh towards the end of April and May, you've got a huge advantage over everybody in the Premier League. So I would say they're definitely one of the favourites, but they're in a group with Barcelona, obviously PSG, Liverpool and Arsenal. Those are the four that I would say are the elite clubs in Europe at the moment who I'd fancy going all the way. And then just beneath that, it will be like Bayern, Man City, Real Madrid, you know, a couple of teams like that as well. I've probably missed someone out, but I don't really fancy anyone from Italy this year. Maybe Inter could be in that second group as well, Napoli. But in terms of the four favourites who I could see going all the way, it will be Barcelona, PSG, Liverpool and Arsenal. Just purely because they're the teams I rate the most.
It's a weird one. I mean, there isn't that team in Europe that you just go, they're a monster. They're going to stomp people. Barcelona's defending his shit again. Real Madrid are still figuring things out under Xabi Alonso, and like they have the talent to maybe become that, but they certainly don't look like it yet. Bayern Munich without Musiala, I think, just aren't quite as scary, although they have a lot of talent. They just do. You know, they're easy to write off, but they also have a PSG thing too, where I think that league is a little bit easier for them.
RB Leipzig 6-0 the other day. So
yeah, and by the way, kudos to Erik ten Hag finding ways to just humiliate himself more than he did at United, sacked after 3 games. And
did you see the Bild article? Yeah, when they were like, he wasn't sacked
him
quick enough.
Yeah. They said he wasn't even liked by the people he brought in. By his own team that he brought in. You gotta love him. But importantly, Garnacho was not offside. So Bayern, you know, I think you have to rate them. Italy, hard to know what to make of the Italian teams.
Inter now are a very different prospect without Simone Inzaghi. They've got Christian Chivu there, very untested manager. I think Napoli will be a difficult proposition under Antonio Conte, but again, talent has a ceiling, and I don't think they have enough to go all the way. And
it's funny because in a
Rasmus
way,
Højlund is not going to win the Champions League for them. You know, it's basically what I'm saying. Or Scott
news.
McTominay.
No,
yeah.
I rate McTominay. But the crazy thing is also that the Premier League teams in it, other than Liverpool and Arsenal, I don't think are that convincing either. You know, once upon a time, you'd expect United, Chelsea, Arsenal, City, you know, or United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, or whatever it was. They were all going to be good. They were all going to be there late. That's not going to be the case. You know, Newcastle are not going to be there late. Chelsea, I really don't know what to make, but I don't expect that they will either. So this feels very open And it felt a little bit open last season, but we went into the late stages of the Champions League with so few players, and we know what happened. If we are fit at the pointy end of this season, I'm really curious to see what Mikel prioritizes. If we are in a title race in April, and if we are still in the Champions League in April, it's that old tough decision to make, right? We probably dropped points against Villa at home 2 seasons ago with some very, very weird substitutions. Go back and look at the game. Look who we brought on in the 65th and 70th minute against Villa in what became the title decider for us. It was because we had the Bayern away trip coming. There's no other analysis of it. And they were weird subs.
Fabio Vieira?
I think we brought on Smith Rowe when he wasn't really playing for us at that time. I had just looked at it, and in fact, you know what I'll do? I'll bring it up because it was notable to me in terms of being a little bit strange. So this is the game we wind up losing 2-0. Now, if you remember, we had the big Leo chance early. Kai Havertz was in on goal like 40 different times, but they wound up
watch that game. Yeah.
No, they wound up scoring in the 84th and the 87th. But here are the changes we made, okay? In the 67th minute, Tomiyasu came on for Ben White. Martinelli came on for Leo. Jorginho came on for Gabriel Jesus. And Smith Rowe came on for Martin Odegaard. That last one in particular, bringing Smith Rowe on for Odegaard in an important Premier League game after 79 minutes, that to me is, we need to be good for Bayern. And I need Odegaard to be fit for that game. And like right after that sub, almost immediately after, like within 3 minutes, we concede. So again, not to reopen old wounds, but it's the point that trying to win the Premier League and the Champions League is the biggest reason I think Premier League teams don't win it, the Champions League, more, because it is the hardest league to go and win and then also still be fit at the end of it. There's no winter break. There's none of that stuff. So for me, Phil, we are favorites. Liverpool are favorites. But if one or both of us are very much in a title race at that stage, how the managers manage that and whether it costs them one or the other will be very, very interesting. So we'll just have to see.
Do you not think that's what we've tried to remedy, though, with this window? Isn't the whole point of building this deep squad so that we can be ready to be able to do both things at the end of the year?
See, that's where I'm a contrarian, though, in the sense that until someone proves otherwise, I've not seen a team that come April doesn't have a set 12 or 13 best players that they're just using. You know what I mean? Like in my mind, am I like, well, you know what? In the Champions League, we'll play Nani off the left and Kai through the middle, or Nani off the right, Kai through the middle, Martinelli off the left, and so on and so forth. And then in the league, we'll play Eze off the left and Gyokeres through the middle and Saka. Sure, that all makes sense, and we have the depth, and we could win both that way. But in my mind, I'm like, when you're playing PSG away, you play your best 11. When you have City away,
yeah, of course.
So you play your best, and your best 11 has to be the same 11. You know what I mean? So I totally agree with you about depth, but in a weird sort of way of undermining that point, I still think the best teams know their 15 best players and tend to use them come March, April, May,
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that, and I'm not saying that we should chop and change based on who we've got in April or May. I'm saying that being able to take off Saka in the 70th minute, being able to swap one of them out in a midweek game, for example, around Christmas, could have a knock-on effect for the end of the season. But
you've changed my mind.
That's a luxury we haven't had. That's why we were so bad.
If Saka's sitting on 2,400 minutes in April instead of 3,100 minutes, that could be the difference in terms of what you get from. No, great point. You've changed my mind. Yes, the depth is why we're winning the double. I realize people are going to say I'm being negative by not saying the quad. I still think it'll just be the double, the Champions League and the Premier League. So then we can decide if Mikel underperformed with the squad that he's got. The irony is that where the depth really may show is in the domestic cups, where we can rotate completely and still be very strong. So okay, I think we got through those lickety split with alacrity, expeditiously. Whatever you want to say. Phil, thanks, man.
Pleasure, man. Always fun.
Friday Night Clive tomorrow. Some power rankings with Clive and a few more other things, depending on what's on his mind. Would love to have you for that. AVP50 is the code if you want it for a couple of quid and see what you think. But that is definitely enough of that. My name's Elliot Smith. We love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10 for us.